My name's Steve Philp, and I'm the Partnership Director here at Portugal Pathways. Today, we'll be diving into the latest updates and news around Portugal's Golden Visa. Now, on the 28th of October this year, Parliament approved reforms that, if enacted, would extend the required residency period for citizenship from the current 5 years to 10 years. The law was then sent to the Portuguese president on November the 11th. However, on November the 13th, the Socialist Party bypassed the president and announced it would request a preventive review of the law by the Constitutional Court, which immediately suspended the law from moving forward until the court and potentially the president either add changes, cancel the bill, or pass it back for Parliament for approval into law. So today we'll start to unpack what this might mean. Again, if you have any questions during the session, obviously, please post them on the chat. A caveat to that, however, would be that we need to wait for the Constitutional Court's official update, which may come as early as next week. We'll answer as many questions as we can in this session, but please bear in mind that certain elements of this are still fluid, which I know may be frustrating to many of you. But in truth, this latest intervention is positive. Afterwards, you'll have the chance to book a follow-up call with one of our Golden Visa experts if you need sort of deeper guidance around your specific circumstances. And we're hoping to have another webinar in the next week or so following the Constitutional Court's input and update. So please obviously look out for details of that. We'll be sharing that within newsletters and reaching out to you all directly by email. So let's get the webinar started, and I just want to introduce you to your panelists today. Firstly, we have Mr. Paul Stannard. So Paul is the chairman and founder of Portugal Pathways and the Portugal Investment Owners Club. And joining Paul, we have Henrique Nunes. So Henrique is the lead immigration lawyer at CMS Law in Lisbon. Thank you both for joining us today. So Henrique, we're going to start off with you. Can you sort of walk us through what happened last week and give us some more insight and understanding of where we are currently with the proposed citizenship law reforms?
Of course. Thank you so much, Steve, for the introduction. So basically what happened was that a few weeks ago, the new law was approved in the parliament. Okay, once the law is approved in the parliament, it goes to the president in order for the president to decide if he sends it to the Constitutional Court in case for him the document raises constitutional issues, or to exercise his right of veto, or to approve it, in which case the law would be approved and it would enter into force. In this case, the Socialist Party, the opposition party, anticipated to the president, and they just sent it. They announced last Friday that they were going to ask for the Constitutional Court to assess, to analyze the new law. They sent it yesterday, okay, to the Constitutional Court. We have 25 days now, during which the Constitutional Court will make their assessment and see what are the if any laws or rules inside this new law would affect would not comply with our constitutional rules. Among these new rules that are to be assessed by the Constitutional Court, it's of course the application or not of this new law to all the ongoing files that are now pending. So it's too soon to know exactly what is going to be the final outcome, what is going to be the decision of the Constitutional Court. But since our last webinar and since our last conversations on this topic, this is actually good news, because we all understand that this document goes against the legitimate expectations of all of those who have ongoing applications. And so it's good news that at least now we know that the Constitutional Court is going to assess that and is going to let us know in the next couple of weeks what is their understanding about this new law. Once we have the final decision of the Constitutional Court, either the Constitutional Court understands that, yes, this new law goes against the Constitution, and so it needs to go back to the Parliament in order for us in order for the document to be discussed again, or they understand that there is no problem whatsoever and that the law can go to the President for its approval. Of course, because of all of these that we have been saying, we do believe that it seems most likely that the Constitutional Court is going to understand that there are constitutional laws, constitutional rules that are not being complied with by this new document. So in principle, in the end of these 25 days, he will send it back to the Parliament for discussion. And after discussion, the Parliament, which is something that may take 2 weeks to 1 month, he would go back. The final law would go back again to the President. The President may or not send it again to the Constitutional Court, or exercise his right of veto, or approve it. Just an additional note to let you know that not only all these legal steps of the lawmaking process would need to be complied with, but we will have also two things in the middle of all this process that may delay a little bit all these periods and deadlines. First, we'll have Christmas time, and as in all Latin countries, we do celebrate Christmas. So after the 14th, 16th, it's going to be a little bit more complicated to have developments on this. Second, in January, we will also have our presidential elections, which might also delay a little bit the final outcome of all this process. This is to say that it's indeed good news that it's being analyzed now for the Constitutional Court, and we would say that worst case scenario, we have easily 1.5 months to 2 months until we have a new law taking into force as of now. Okay, so this is the current situation, Steve.
Thank you, Henry. So can you you mentioned obviously the Socialist Party's decision to bypass the President and send the citizenship law directly to the Constitutional Court for obviously preventative review. Can you sort of explain why that's significant, and maybe explain a bit more about what that means for the law's future?
I would not say that it's a bypass, okay, because all of them have the same right, okay? So the President has exactly the same right as one of the parties to ask for the Constitutional Court for what we call, how can I say this in English? Fiscalização preventiva, for like a preventive inspection of the new law, okay? What usually happens is that it's the President doing that when he's analyzing for the first time. He's usually the person asking for this preventive inspection to the Constitutional Court. This time, it's not that common, it's true, but it's something that it's possible. One of the opposition parties, because they gathered the necessary signatures, they decided to, because they did not know what was going to be asked to the Constitutional Court by the President, they decided to anticipate themselves. More than a bypass, I would say that they're anticipating themselves to the President and exercising a right of their own, which is asking for the Constitutional Court to analyze and to assess this new law, okay? So it's more or less the same right. Usually it's the President doing so. This time the Socialist Party, because they thought it was a really serious situation, they decided to anticipate themselves to the President. But it's not something completely, it's uncommon, but it's something that the opposition parties can always do if they gather the necessary number of signatures, which they did.
Okay, thank you. Well, I've also read that such reforms might also violate sort of people's constitutional rights. Could you sort of expand on that sort of a little bit?
No, it's exactly that. So we have different levels of analysis here, right? One of the things that is being discussed, which will not be as relevant for everyone that is listening to us, but just for you to understand. One of the amendments to the law, it's the possibility of losing the Portuguese citizenship if you committed crimes. And we are having a huge discussion around this because many people say that this is completely unconstitutional. You can go to jail. You cannot lose your Portuguese citizenship just because you committed crimes. So this is one of the parts of the legal of the constitutional rights that they have been discussing. Apart from that, we are discussing about we are talking about the legal expectations of all of those who had ongoing golden visas and believed in the law that was enforced when they decided to move forward with their golden visas, or when they decided to make their investments, or not to move forward with the actions that we have been moving forward in order to expedite the file. All of these decisions that were made in the past, taking into consideration the laws that were currently in force, may, of course, affect and jeopardize the legitimate expectations of all of those who made those decisions, okay? And this type of legitimate expectations are protected by the Constitution, okay? Not only to Portuguese, but also to foreigner citizens living in Portugal through a legal residency. So this is, in broad terms, what is being discussed now, and the constitutional doubts that this new law raises.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation, Henry. Paul, from your experience and obviously working very closely with the international families investors, what are your sort of thoughts on all of this?
Well, there's two types of people. There's the people that sort of before the sort of law changed before, so prior to 2024, your application did not trigger the start of your countdown to citizenship. So it was linked to when you got the cards, and then obviously there's this big problem for people prior to that time that have been waiting and waiting and waiting because of the sheer demand that was coming at Portugal. And we can all talk about the rights and wrongs of the CEF and what replaced it, AMA, about their ability to cope, but they had so much coming at them. It fell over, and ultimately the whole thing is about sticking to the contract that they signed up to, that they invested in the country, not just financially, but they invested in the country based on a principle. I think a lot of people are lobbying, and a lot of things have been written in the media, but ultimately, constitutionally, how can you have something that is based on one thing, and you can't leave everybody held to account because the failures of an immigration department. So we've got those group. We've then got others that basically are less affected because in 2025, once you put your application in, your clock started ticking on citizenship. So perversely, on paper, this unfairness that those people were more advantaged to get potential citizenship because of this situation. So perversely, that's the challenge, and that's the challenge that will have to be looked at. And we're still hopeful because of this intervention, because we still have the Constitutional Court, because we still have the president, that and the lobbying that's going on, and this time is giving us more time to make it hopefully that we do get some sensible grandfathering, so that clarity can come to this process.
I would even add something. It's more than being hopeful, which is you spoke wisely, Paul, but I would just add that it's more than being hopeful. We strongly believe that, and that is why in the Constitutional Court, and that is why the Socialist Party anticipated themselves to the president. We strongly believe that this is not going to finish as it is right now, and this is why also almost, I don't know, I don't want to risk percentages. It always looks a little bit like it could have said any other number, but it's like at least 95% or more than 95% of the clients that we have nowadays are moving forward and are trying to file the golden visa before this new law takes into force. Okay, why? Because for all of those who already made the decision, and for all of those who say, okay, I would prefer 5, but for me it's not actually relevant if it's 5 or 10, I prefer file it now rather than in 2 or 3 months, because it would be more or less the same for the person you're investing. But if you file 3 months later, if everyone will be grandfathered in, everyone who filed 3 months later will not be grandfathered in. So not only we strongly believe that this is clearly going to have a different final outcome in what concerns the grandfathering regime, but almost all of the people doing the investment now and who already feel comfortable with the idea of moving forward are trying to definitely file it before the new law takes into force, strongly believing that everyone is going to be grandfathered if the law is filed before the new law takes into force. Having this said, I'm not saying for all of those who are not comfortable or who are still deciding to rush up their minds and to rush up the investment because of this, okay? Because I always like the clients to be comfortable with the investment and then the idea of moving forward. But for all of those who actually are comfortable with it and already decided, it doesn't make sense to wait a few months, because if everyone will be grandfathered in, all of those who filed the day after the law takes into force will not be grandfathered. Just that. I would just add this, Paul.
And just adding to what Henrique's saying, if you act early and you do all of the things and show the right intent, then your argument in any case is going to be stronger. So we had this with NHR when that came to an end at the end of 2024. There was a lot of people saying, well, I don't know, I might wait, I might this, I might that. But in the end, the grandfathering form, if you showed intent, now there's a lot of questions that we've got to go through that are in the chat, and hopefully, we'll get to as many of those as we can within the time span. But the reality of it is, if you act early, if you've acted on the things that you're supposed to have done, you can show what you've done, then you're going to be in the strongest position possible in whatever comes out of the assessments that the Constitutional Court or the President or even the government conduct between now and the final outcome.
Okay.
There is even, just for people to understand, there is even a strong theory that it's so ridiculous to apply to the past all these new rules, that there are many people who believe that this was done by the government and only based on political perceptions, like worldwide nowadays, bearing in mind that the Constitutional Court and all the controls that we have within our law would not let the law pass as it is. At the same time, from a political perspective, they would have made the show they wanted and the votes would be granted. So there is this theory that everyone was already counting with this assessment by the Constitutional Court, actually.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I just want to, excuse me, I just want to touch really on what's next for families that are still waiting for their residency cards or their appointments for other family members. Maybe sort of Henrique, you could touch on that point.
But on golden visas that are already submitted and pending, right?
Yeah.
So, because what happened recently was that all the ongoing golden visas from 2022 onwards received notification for the main applicants. Is that it that we're talking about?
Yes, we are.
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
Perfect. Okay, yes. So what happened was that, all of a sudden, we were only getting appointments through claims. We were moving forward with lots of claims, but we had many clients, because it is counting for the citizenship system moment they apply, that couldn't care less about having or not having the visa, so they were waiting for the appointment. We received in 1 week 180 notifications. I'm not exaggerating. 180 notifications from one Thursday to one Tuesday, something like this, only for the main applicants. Okay. From the information that I was informally provided with, it's true that some family members received notifications, but only the oldest ones from 2021, because apparently there were still golden visas to move forward from 2021 and beginning of 2022. All the others, only the main applicants received it. What authorities are saying is that they are asking to everyone to inform about the cancellations, because they will try whenever possible, and in small families, they will try to see if they can schedule the appointments for closer dates, or they are going to notify all the family members for the dates immediately after the main applicants. What authorities say is that they will not make a decision case by case. Okay, so please let's not drown their email box with emails. They will find a solution for all the family members altogether. So they will not find the solution for this, for that, for so either they will find a way to notify almost everyone to dates closer to the ones they already have, or they will notify the family members for the month, for the couple of months immediately after. Okay, this is what being discussed, but I'm still trying to find a solution for all the family members.
Lovely. Thank you, Henry. Thank you.
Let me just add something, Steve. But for everyone that is listening to us, it's really good news that we have, even if it's only, I know it's frustrating, and I know it gives a burden to the family members and to that it doesn't make sense because it was fault of immigration authorities. But it's actually good news that we are at least receiving appointments to all the main applicants. It means that they are cleaning the house. It means that they are trying to solve the tremendous backlog they have, and I'm sure we will have soon notifications and news regarding the family members.
Thank you for clarifying that, Henrik. Paul, just sort of changing tack slightly, there was a report out this week from the World Digital Foundation on the wider impact of Portugal's golden visa, which goes way beyond the reported 9 billion. And shows that for every euro invested, another 6 goes into the economy or through taxes. Can you tell us a little bit more about the report and what this means to everybody in Portugal and how people can obviously access that report?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a lot of WhatsApp groups with, people coming to Portugal with a golden visa, D visas. And when there's change in anything, especially where it relates to investment and people's lives, it's going to be very emotive. And this report highlights that how important it is to everyone, not just to as so-called wealthy golden visa investors, or that 30,000 jobs have come into the economy as a result of the investment. Huge amount of VAT, taxes, money spent in the economy. On average, a golden visa investor, 20% of them go on to invest 3 or 4 times that amount in other enterprises and ventures after. So when you take into account all of it, going back to that sort of contract that people made, if you take what happened in the UK several years ago, where we had a prime minister that only lasted for 6 weeks because we didn't stand on a promise with the bond markets, I think it's really strong that this report has come out right now, because it highlights not just to the politicians, but it also highlights to everyone in Portugal how important it is to driving Portugal's future. You can access that report via that website. We will also have it, I think, as a potential download that people can download at the end of this webinar.
Thank you. Just before we sort of move forward to sort of questions, and there are obviously lots of questions in the chat. And again, just to reiterate, if we don't get around to answering all of those questions within the Q&A at the end of this webinar, then our team at Portugal Pathways will reach out to you individually, answer those questions, or arrange, a a quick call just to discuss your personal situation. But before we get on to those, Henry, beyond the residency duration proposals, there are also new requirements for civic tests, clean criminal records, and a formal commitment to democratic values. Can you talk a little bit more around this?
Yeah, but the criminal records and the need of speaking Portuguese language was already there. The only new one, really new one, it's what they call the civic knowledge test. No one can give much more information about it. What I heard was that was related with the Portuguese constitution, legal rights and duties, and more that than anything else, that general culture or history. But it's really difficult to know what is going to be the exact extent of that new requirement. What I heard and what was being discussed was more Portuguese constitution, legal rights and duties, main principles of the country to be complied with. I think it's more than this. I don't know, Steve. May I go through some of the questions that I'm seeing here that are easy to answer?
Of course, absolutely, yeah.
Because I'm looking here. So because someone is asking if the Constitutional Court is going only to review some of the points. Exactly, that's what I was saying. So they are not going to review all the law. They are only going to review the aspects that were raised by the Socialist Party, and no one knows the document yet. So I know informally, because of the people I spoke to, that they are also going to that they are going to be exhaustive in the points to be assessed by the Constitutional Court. The application of the law in time is there to all the pending files. No one knows this in detail because we don't know the document yet. Okay, we should receive it soon. Then it was also asking if this increase from 5 to 10 years would change anything in what concerns there's a modality of asking for a citizenship when you were married with a Portuguese for at least 3 years. That one remains untouched, so it's not going to increase to 10 or to the double. So that rule of the 3 years when you are married with a Portuguese will remain exactly the same. And then I was just, how does this impact someone? So the rest regarding I think that if you have specific queries, it's best that you book a call, because here how this impacts someone with an appointment with the government in February, if have not received appointments for the rest of the family. I don't know what kind of appointment are we talking about. I don't know. So this would, in order to answer a question like this, we would need much more detail. Okay.
And our colleagues have been putting in, we'll keep putting a link. So if you've got any specific questions that we haven't answered fully because they're too personalized, you can take the link that our moderators will put in the chat again in a minute, and we'll come back and answer your questions or arrange a call.
There's one really important here, Steve. Paul, which is, do I have to keep my investment for, so if the golden visa needs to wait 10 years for citizenship in accordance with these new rules, how about if I already invested in the funds that expires in 6 to 7 years? So the funds do not expire, okay? The funds have what we call a liquidation period. Two comments on that. Yes, most of the funds have a liquidation period now of 6 to 8 years, which would be the time required to get for the citizenship to be granted. Two comments on that. First, there's a common understanding already between everyone that after getting the permanent residency, which is something that you can ask after the 5th year, everyone is asking at the renewal of the 6th year, that after getting the permanent residency, you don't need to keep the investment, okay? Which changes a little bit here what we are discussing. Even if it was not like this, please note that if all of a sudden all the holders of participation units, if all actionists, all the stakeholders of a fund want to extend the lifetime of the fund from 7 to 11 years, that can be done by 50% by an approval of 50%, okay, by a majority of 50%. So first, it's arguable, and everyone is saying that you don't need to keep the investment for the 10 years. If by any chance, by any reason, you want to extend the time of the fund, there will be an assembly, a board, and it can be voted by simple majority, the extension of the liquidation period, okay, from 7 to 11 years or something like that. We already discussed this with all the funds, and this would not be a problem, okay? We would just need to adapt considering each one's circumstances.
Okay. There's a couple of questions here, actually, Henrik, that I can ask you as well.
Please.
one from Bruce, and again, I know we've covered some of these elements within the main body of the webinar, but it's always useful to go over them. But Bruce is saying, if I apply for citizenship now, but the new law passes, will I be subject to the 10-year rule?
Yeah, no. That's completely, so there's no doubt about it. So one thing is the citizenship. So if you file the citizenship request, it's stuck. So the law that will be applicable to your case, it's the law that was enforced when you filed the citizenship request, okay? Why is it different with the immigration law? Because the immigration law, it's a different law. Of course, it's completely connected, and once you get for the fifth year of the immigration law, you can apply for citizenship. But technically, there are two different laws. Okay, but it's a non-issue when it concerns to the citizenship request. Now, once you file the citizenship request, the 5 years will be applicable, because what will count is the law that was enforced when you file for the citizenship request. In conclusion, let me just say that if by any chance, any of you that you are, because we have here almost 100 people listening to us, by any chance, any of you already completed 5 years, the submission of the visa request, we should be submitting your citizenship request now, okay? When I say now, it's within the next month before the new law takes into force. On that cases, it's completely obvious, okay? It's just file it as soon as possible before the new law takes into force, because otherwise we will be discussing if it's 5 or 10 years, according to everything that I've been saying here.
Okay. I mean, again, I've got one here that Daniel's asked, and a couple of people have come in behind him as well, and maybe you could give an opinion or some direction on this. So Daniel's saying that the argument supporting grandfathering would seem much stronger in favour of those who applied before Parliament passed a new law than in favour of those who applied after Parliament acted, but before the new law takes into effect. The latter group could be considered fully informed about the new future rules. Is it likely that Constitutional Court will make that distinction, thus not providing a grandfathering to those who apply now?
That was already discussed. In principle, technically, they cannot make that distinction, okay? Because until the moment you have a new law, you need to make your decisions in accordance with the laws that are in force, period, okay? And this is...
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's no, I understand it's fair because, okay, maybe my legitimate expectation could not be that strong because I knew that the law was that an amendment to the law was being discussed. They will not be able to do that, okay? That in principle, that will not happen. That will not happen because the idea is, the only thing that really matters is what was the law in force. And my decisions as an investor were taken based under which circumstances and under which valid rules. Okay, this is what matters. If they would make a distinction before the ones that filed before all this legal amendments discussion and after, they will be treating in a different way. Investors, citizens, applicants that are exactly in the same situation. So I don't believe that could happen.
Yeah, good answer. Thank you, Henry. And again, just scrolling through, there are some sort of common themes in terms of questions, and one is that there are a number of people, including Camilla, who has concerns or a question around until what age can children still come in under their parents? And there's a few of those in there.
Good question. So there are really contradictory information online. Okay, I don't know who started that, but there is no limit of age at all. Okay, and I'm 200% sure of what I'm saying to you. There is no limit of age for children. Okay, you need to prove two things. Authorities love saying that they cross-check with Interpol, with all the countries, governments that you can imagine. They do not. They will only analyze two documents to see if your children are eligible for the family reunification request or not. If they are single, which means that they are not married, an affidavit or a document proving that they never got married, and that they are enrolled as full-time students, being the main applicant or the spouse responsible for the payment of the tuition fees. As long as they comply with these two no one can say absolutely anything. And why do I say that? Because I have family members, I have children with 32 years old being approved. And the only thing I showed was these two things. Enrollment as full-time students in schools, and documents proving that the kids are not married. So no limit of age. I know that there is contradictory information online. Because of that, I even feel obliged to speak with some key contacts of mine within immigration authorities. And they said, I know, Enrique, I don't know where they started. There is a confusion around that, but there is no legal limit of age for the family unification request. And of that, I'm totally sure, okay?
Okay.
Henry, some of the people are asking, though, when they started on this process, their children are now 21, 24. How can they be expected to stay unmarried for another 10 years?
Well, that's the only thing that you can't. If they get married, they will no longer be eligible for the golden visa. So, but it's not a 10 years. Again, bear in mind that we have, in the meantime, what we call the permanent residency. This is a really important concept. So, with the golden visa, when the golden visa is granted for 2 years, every 2 years. Okay, so when you get to the 6th year, you already completed 5. So you can ask for the permanent residency, which is valid for 5 years. So also in that case, I would say that they would need to keep single at least until the moment they ask the permanent residency, which will be until the 6th year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't have to wait 10 more years.
They don't have to wait 10 more years, but I would say that being cautious and and I like to sleep well at night with the advice that I give to my clients. So I would say that at least at 6 years, until the moment they get the permanent residency. Why? They get the permanent residency. The permanent residency is valid for 5 years. When they would get, this is the worst case scenario, bearing in if the law is 10 years and applicable to everyone. See, in the 6th year, they go for the 3rd renewal. They ask for permanent residency that is valid for 5 years. And when you get to the 10th year, you ask for the citizenship, and you don't even go for the renewal of the permanent residency. Okay, this is what we have been advising. Okay. So answering directly, they will need to keep married, and at least in order not to take risks and to make sure that it would be eligible for the family unification request, they will need to keep married at least until the 6th year, until they get the permanent residency.
Okay. Just again, a couple of questions in here. There's a couple of individuals, including Kazi. If I apply for the golden visa, how will I start the procedure? Paul, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, they need to have a discovery call. If they reach out, there's a link that's been shared. Have a discovery call with us and one of our immigration experts like Enrique will come on a call and walk you through the process. And then separately on the investment side, once that process is started, we will run that in parallel. We are getting people through quickly at the moment. There's a lot of people trying to get through quickly, but we're getting through them. This little extra bit of time that we've been given does create a bit of a window, but not a big one. But we have done it in very quick time recently. If people are very proactive in terms of responding, and we've had, as you know, Steve, people that have entered this process only a few weeks ago, whereas before, people weren't as responsive, and it might take 3, 4, 5 months or whatever. We have got people through very quickly in recent times, but that window has been extended slightly. But we've got Christmas coming, so it's not a big window. But a lot of people are coming now and not so worried about. We've got Malaysians that basically are more interested in the golden visa residency card than they are the citizenship. So the demand is still there. We're not seeing, a lot of people thought we'd see less demand, but that isn't the case. What we want to protect is the rights of the people that have actually acted and and they're protected, and that the people, you know, if they act early and they've shown their intent, they get their just, you know, they get the just rewards from what they did and not punished for it.
Okay, thank you. So we are sort of coming up towards the sort of end of the sort of allotted time, and I'm conscious that everyone has a busy days still in front of them. But before we sort of wrap up today, I just want to sort of say to everybody that, you know, by being part of obviously the Portugal Pathways ecosystem, by registering for this webinar, you will receive updates via newsletters, articles, invitations, as we said at the beginning, to a follow-up webinar. So by being part of our ecosystem, if you don't see the need obviously to reach out to us directly today for a personalized call, we will be keeping you informed on the updates from the constitutional courts, the government and the president himself. So in order to wrap up, Henrik, what would be your sort of final sort of closing thought?
Well, I think I already said about all this. I already said everything I wanted to. I think that it's been a while that you were, since June, that we were expecting to see what if anyone was going to send this document to the Constitutional Court. So it's actually really good news that is being assessed by the Constitutional Court, and we strongly believe that we are going to have good news coming out of that. I would just finish that for all of those who already decided to move forward and already decided to that they feel comfortable with the investment, I think that they should try to file it before the law takes into force, just in case everyone is grandfathered in, because it would not make much sense to do exactly the same but 2 or 3 months later, because in principle that would give much less rights to the investor than doing it now and before the new law takes into force. I think this is the main message of this webinar.
Thank you. And Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, there's a lot of other things here, not just about trying to encourage people to jump in now, which I think, you know, you're going to get the best outcomes if you act early. And there's a lot of people still putting things in. Well, you know, I've got my biometric appointments in 26. In February 20, I've been waiting 3 years because they were on the old timelines. You know, am I going to get 5 years or am I going to get 10 years? Well, we can't, you know, we're not writing the law, but what we speak to a lot of learning people, both about constitutional things, both lawyers like Henrik, and, you know, under your constitutional rights, there are so many things that are in your favor that we cannot see how positive things are not going to happen in relation to that. And if they don't, there will be, you know, that will have consequences. But we believe strongly that if you have appointments, that your families will be able to, you know, be able to follow on if you're the lead applicant. And we believe that, you know, strongly that there will be a time frame that will allow you to get what you signed up for.
Exactly. And as I said before, sort of Henrik and Paul just wrapped up there, was that, you know, by staying close to Portugal Pathways, and, you know, when we send out our updates and invitations to follow up webinars, you know, we are as close to it as you can possibly be, as both Henrik and Paul have said. So I just want to thank the audience for staying with us. A recording of this will be sent out. And again, if we haven't been able to get to all of your questions, then the team will do that. And again, I know that there's been a number of you that have already looked to book a consultation call to discuss your personal situation. So we'll get around to organising those within the next sort of 24 hours or so. So it really just leaves me to say a big thank you again to Paul and Henrik, and just to say that obviously our next webinar, which will be, that is a wrong one, I do apologise. Our next webinar is on the 25th, and it is around obviously taxation. So I do apologise, that one is incomplete. So it just leaves me to say thank you very much for joining us today. We'll be in touch very soon. Any questions in the meantime, please obviously reach out to us via our website, www.portugalpathways.io, and we will speak to you very soon. Thank you very much.